Peñíscola, Spain, 1735. The sound of the waves crashed against the dark shore, carrying the sharp scent of salt. The southern sun had already disappeared, bleeding the sky into a fiery red, as if even the gods themselves bled on that. Salvatore Navarro was only 12 years old, yet he already knew he did not belong to this world. Perched on a damp rock, he stared at the sea, his bare feet sinking into the cold sand. Thin, sharp-featured, silent. He was a shadow no one looked for, a child no one wanted. He was the bastard son of a king who never claimed him. His mother, once a royal consort, had been cast out of the Spanish court when her betrayal was discovered. A scandal to be buried, a mistake the English crown wanted. Salvatore had been condemned to grow up among the ruins of a woman destroyed by greed. He did not speak, he did not trust. The world already saw him. But that night, the sea delivered something different. A colossal shadow rose on the horizon, black sails devouring the stars. A ship so massive it seemed to swallow the heavens. As it drew closer, Salvatore read the carved name on its wooden hull, Leviathan. The ship anchored, and men descended, reeking of rum and gunpowder, laughter echoing like thunder. Among them, one stood out, a bearded old pirate, one eye hidden beneath a leather patch, his smile cruel and ancient. He walked straight toward Salvatore, as if he had always known the boy would be there. "You don't belong here, boy," the pirate's voice rasped, torn by wind and salt. Salvatore did not answer. He simply stared back, calm, storm burning in his eyes. The old man grinned. "Come with me. Know the seven seas. Let the past die." It was a choice. To stay, and rot in a world that never wanted him, or to leave, and become something the world would never forget. The boy cast one last look at the house that smelled of wine and broken dreams, at the beach where he had buried his childhood, and then he stepped aboard. That night, Salvatore Navarro ceased to be a forgotten child. That night, he began his transformation into the terror of the seven seas. If you are new here, subscribe and join us. And if you are already part of this home, leave your like and your comment. These gestures are like small seeds that make this community bloom with every story.
Somewhere in the North Atlantic, 1755, the wind lashed across the deck, filling the sails until they looked like pale ghosts under the moonlight. The air smelled of salt and wet wood, mingled with the faint perfume of dried roses sewn into the folds of my gown. I was sailing to England, to become a queen, to belong to a man I had never met. My fingers tightened around the wooden rail, the rough surface biting into my skin, while I stared at the endless black ocean. The sky glittered with countless stars, but none of their light seemed enough to brighten the path before me. My mother always said I was blessed by the gods, but if that were true, why did my destiny belong to someone else? "Your Highness, you should rest," said Commander Gregor behind me, his voice low and respectful. "The sea will be rough tonight." I turned, holding my chin high, as a princess should. Gregor was a strong man, his armor reflecting the silver light of the moon, a soldier loyal to my father. "The sea does not frighten me," I murmured. He sighed, his eyes scanning me with something between protection and resignation. "I know, but it would be wiser to rest. We are entering the Caribbean waters now, and not every ship here belongs to kings." Something unspoken lingered in his voice. Pirates. A chill slid through my veins, though I did not let it reach my expression. "You believe someone would dare attack a royal vessel?" He hesitated before answering. "There are men who fear no crown, Your Highness, only the sound of gold." I had heard the stories. Men with no banner, who plundered empires and burned cities, men who saw women as nothing more than trophies of war. My fingers pressed tightly against the fabric of my gown, suppressing the shiver that threatened to betray me. "My fate is sealed, Commander," I said quietly. "Whatever comes to me, let it come." He bowed his head, his gaze heavy with unspoken worry. "Good night, Your Highness." When he left, the sea breeze kissed my skin, tossing my hair loose over my shoulders, like a siren lost in the storm. I lingered for a moment more, then sighed and walked back inside. The corridor was lit with torches that painted restless shadows on polished wood. At the end was my chamber, decorated with tapestries and cushions embroidered by hand, the scent of lavender struggling to mask the damp smell of the sea. I loosened my corset, letting the gown fall until I wore only a light silk nightdress. Sitting on the edge of the bed, knees together, hands folded over my lap, I thought of him, King Alistair. I knew so little about the man I was destined to marry. Only that he was powerful, older than me, and said to be cruel when he wished to be. He would have me, claim me, make me his queen, and I would fulfill my duty, because that was the destiny of a princess. But when I closed my eyes, it was not a king my mind conjured. It was the sea, the endless waves calling to me, and a cold premonition, sharp as claws, sank deep into my chest. That night, the gods whispered something into the wind, and had I known what awaited me, I would have prayed never to wake again.
The wind howled like an angry demon, making the torches of the Black Hawk flicker as my crew moved like predators, silent and merciless. The royal ship gleamed in the distance, bathed in moonlight, a floating monument of arrogance and gold. It was my prey. The contract was simple. By order of the Ottoman Sultan, I was to steal the bride of the English king and deliver her as a prize. But I was never a man who followed rules. I paced across the deck of my ship, the sea pounding against the hull with every step, my hand resting on the hilt of my saber. The air was heavy with salt and gunpowder. "Captain, we're ready," Reed, my first mate, said. His scarred face carried the story of battles fought and loyalty proven. My eyes never left the royal vessel. "No cannons," I ordered, my voice cold and sharp. "We board in silence. Kill anyone who resists. The princess is mine." They never heard us coming. Our torches were extinguished, and we became one with the ocean itself. The Black Hawk cut through the waters like a phantom, a shadow hungry for blood. The royal ship, grand and adorned, its white sails bright under the moon, had no idea it was already condemned. We were the silence before carnage, the darkness before steel sliced through flesh, the inevitable fate of all who crossed my seas. The ships touched with hardly a sound. Hooks and ropes flew across, my men climbing like ghosts. I was the first to set foot on the deck. The scent of polished wood and noble perfume filled my lungs. The scent of royalty, of weakness. The first guard didn't even scream. My blade pierced his throat in one clean strike, his eyes widening as life spilled onto the deck like spilled wine. Chaos erupted. The royal soldiers, startled from their sleep, awoke into massacre. Steel clashed under the moonlight. Blood mingled with salt in the... But I wasn't there for gold, or blood. I was there for her. I cut through the fighting, ignoring the cries of the dying. Commander Gregor came at me, sword raised high. "Bastard!" he roared, his strike heavy, precise. Steel rang as our blades collided. He was strong, experienced. But I was a pirate, and pirates do not fight with honor. I slipped past his defense, slashing behind his knee. He fell, cursing, and I pressed my boot to his chest. "You bleed for a king who would never bleed for you," I whispered, voice sharper than my blade. "I bow to no throne. I live only for myself." Blood foamed at his lips as he spat. "Then what do you fight for?" I smiled coldly. "For me." My blade sank into his heart. Without looking back, I walked through the ship's corridors, blood staining the carpets beneath my boots. I kicked open a door, and there she was, Daphne Callistratos. The princess stood frozen, her dark hair falling in waves, her eyes burning with defiance. She did not scream, she did not run, but her hands trembled against the sheets, betraying the fear beneath her proud stance. Beautiful. I had heard the drunken tales. Sailors whispering about the Greek princess with the face of a goddess, a treasure no man would ever touch. But seeing her now was something the gods themselves would never forgive. I understood then why kings and sultans would risk blood and war for her, why men in power would destroy empires just to claim her. She was a vision, and I could not look away. Her silk nightdress clung to her shape under the glow of the torches, the delicate fabric shimmering like moonlight over her skin. But it was her eyes, fiery, golden, full of hatred, that held me captive. She hated me, and that made her even more irresistible. I felt the storm inside me, hot and merciless. She would be mine, and I would never let her go. I smiled darkly, closing the door behind me, locking us inside. The massacre outside raged on, but in that room, only her fear and my certainty existed. She lifted her chin, proud, though her body betrayed a tremor. "If you're going to kill me, do it quickly," she said, her voice cold, her fire undimmed. I lowered my blade from her throat. "Kill you?" I leaned closer, my gaze devouring hers. "No. You're worth far more alive." Her breath caught, her chest rising with panic, or something else. I gripped her wrist, pulling her close enough to feel her heart hammering. "You belong to me now, princess," I whispered, lethal and certain. Her eyes blazed with hatred. Perfect. I hoisted her onto my shoulder with ease. She thrashed, shouted, even clawed at me, but it was useless. Her fate was sealed. As I carried her across the blood-soaked deck, my men stared. The ship burned behind us, explosions consuming it in fire. Her voice trembled, the first crack of fear escaping her lips. "You're going to sink it?" "Yes," I said simply. And when the flames swallowed the royal vessel, dragging every trace of her old life into the depths, Daphne Callistratos was mine. The crash of the waves against the hull of the Black Hawk echoed like an ancient call. The night wind was sharp, carrying salt, smoke, and the scent of blood still staining the deck. But none of that mattered. My mind remained in her chamber. Daphne Callistratos. The way she stood, defiant though she knew there was no escape. The fire in her eyes. Golden flames of rage and pride. The tremor in her breath. A storm of fear and something she did not yet understand. But I knew all too well. I recognized it. The thin line between fear and desire. She felt both. I leaned against the rail, letting the cold night air cool the fire she awoke. This was not supposed to happen. She was only a prize. A contract. Another treasure in my chest of spoil. And yet I could not touch the hilt of my sword without wishing it were her skin beneath my hand. I closed my eyes, breathing in the salt of the sea. The ocean had always been my only certainty, my only escape. I had been voiceless when it first called to me. No one wanted me. No one spoke my name. I was nothing more than a mistake. The bastard son of a king who never claimed me. I grew up in Peñíscola, on the Spanish coast, watching my mother drown in wine and regret. Day after day, a ghost of the woman she once had been. She never saw me as a son. She saw me only as the ruin of her life. And I, mute, nameless, abandoned, waited for the day I would disappear as well. Until the night a ship of black sails came to shore. Until a pirate looked at me and saw something more than a forgotten bastard. That night, I fled without turning back. I traded invisible chains for the taste of salt and freedom. And I swore never again to let anyone call me nothing. I became a curse on the sea, the terror of 7 oceans. And now, I had a king's bride as my prize. I opened my eyes, the spray of the sea hitting my face. Reed's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "What will you do with her, Captain?" I turned slowly. He wasn't alone. Other men lingered nearby, curious, restless. Daphne Callistratos fascinated, but none of them would dare touch her. She was mine. "Will we sell her to the Sultan, as agreed?" Reed pressed, arms crossed. My gaze hardened. No. The silence struck like an anchor. Reed's eyes narrowed. He knew what that meant. "You want to keep her." It wasn't a question. A slow, dangerous smile curved my lips. "Tell me, Reed, have you ever seen a pirate return a treasure after stealing it?" He let out a dry laugh. "No, Captain, never." The men eventually dispersed, satisfied with the answer. But Reed stayed. His eyes stayed on me, sharp as ever. "You know what this means." My smile widened. "It means I've just picked a fight with both the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire and the King of England." Reed scoffed. "And since when has that ever bothered you?" I clapped his shoulder, laughing. "Exactly." He shook his head, asking no more questions. He knew that once my mind was made up, there was no turning back. Daphne Callistratos was mine, and I would never let her go.
The cold wind rushed through the windows of the cabin where he kept me, but my skin still burned from the memory of his hands gripping me the night before. He had unchained me, but I was not free. I knew it the moment he entered my chamber again. "Get up." His voice came low, deliberate, carrying an unspoken threat. I pretended to sleep, hoping he would leave. The silence stretched for only a few seconds. Then he tore me from the bed. I gasped as his arms lifted me effortlessly, throwing me over his shoulder like a sack. "You wretch!" I shouted, striking at his back with my fists. He laughed. "Still in a foul mood this morning, princess? Put me down. As you wish." And with that, he dropped me into the bath. The cold water swallowed me whole. My lungs seized, my silk garments clinging to my skin as I struggled back to the surface, gasping for air. My wet hair clung heavy to my face, dripping into my eyes. He stood there, watching, calm as a king without a throne, his dark eyes glittering with cruel amusement. "What in the devil's name are you doing?" I spat. He crouched beside the tub, rolling up his sleeves as if this were the most ordinary task in the world. "Giving you a bath." My fists clenched beneath the water. "You think I will allow you? You think you have a choice?" He cut in, his tone sharp, dangerous. The challenge in his voice made my stomach twist. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. "Either you wash yourself, or I will do it for you." My whole body trembled. Hatred, humiliation, and something darker I dared not name. He expected me to break, to flinch, to lower my eyes. Instead, I grabbed the water pitcher and poured it over my own head, scrubbing my arms furiously, as if I could erase every trace of him from my skin. His laugh was low, amused. "Good girl." I wanted to stab him. His gaze followed my every move, sharp and relentless, like the ocean itself. When I finished, I looked up at him, my eyes burning with loathing. "Are you satisfied?" Salvatore tilted his head, that mocking smile never leaving his face. "Not yet." Before I could react, he reached into the water and ran his rough fingers through my soaked hair, massaging my scalp slowly. I froze. There was no rush, no cruelty, only a firm, possessive touch. My breath caught. and for the briefest moment, a shameful, dangerous thought crossed my mind. It felt good. I closed my eyes against my will, just for a second, and hated myself for it. When he pulled back, I saw the victory in his eyes, the satisfied smile of a man who knew he had won a battle I hadn't even realized I was fighting. Hatred flared in me like venom. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I swore I would make Salvatore Navarro pay for every one of these moments. I would see him burn.
The wind sliced across the sea like an invisible blade, snapping the sails of the Black Hawk taut. The ship advanced like a predator in the night, slipping into shadows, fleeing from the powers that hunted us. I knew the Sultan would not forgive betrayal. I knew the King of England would scour the seas to reclaim what I had taken. But none of that mattered, because locked inside my cabin was my most valuable possession, and I would not hand her to any. Daphne Callistratos was mine, and tonight she would see where fate had delivered her. Through thick fog, the island finally revealed itself. La Isla de los Condenados, the Isle of the Damned. It rose from the ocean like a curse carved in stone and shadow, cloaked in superstition and fear. To the world, it was an island abandoned by God. To me, it was home. Black stone towers loomed atop jagged cliffs, a fortress carved at the end of the earth. Caves at its base hid treasures stolen from fallen empires. And at its heart, a king without a crown ruled over the wreckage of everything the world had once denied him. As my men prepared the anchorage, I had only one thought. Before the ship even steadied near the shore, my feet carried me back to her. I opened the door without knocking, and there she was. Her eyes locked on mine instantly, sharp as a blade. She still wore the thin white gown I had allowed her to keep, its fabric falling loose over her frame, shadows of her figure etched by the dim light. She did not cower, but her fingers clutched the back of the chair she sat on, as if the wood itself could protect her. Poor girl. She did not yet understand that nothing could protect her. I closed the door and moved closer, slow and deliberate. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice steady, though a faint hesitation slipped beneath her defiance. I smiled. "Welcome to my island, princess." Confusion flickered across her features, followed by a dangerous spark. "Your island? Every stone, every grain of sand, every cave and every corpse the sea spits onto this shore? All of it belongs to me." My gaze slid over her slowly. "And now, so do you." Her golden eyes flared with fury. She hated every word I spoke, but she did not hate the way I looked at her, because I saw the truth. Her breath faltered, her body betrayed her. Even in her resistance, Daphne Callistratos felt the invisible weight of my presence as if it were a touch. "You're a monster," she spat. My smile widened. "And you are about to learn how monsters play with their prey." I gripped her chin between my fingers, pulling her face close to mine, so near she could feel the heat of my breath. I wanted her to know there was no escape. "You may hate me, princess," I whispered, my voice low and dangerous. "But what you make me feel, that is a problem." Her lips parted, her defiance faltering for the briefest heartbeat. She wanted to curse me, but her body already betrayed another truth. I released her suddenly, sharp and harsh, watching her stagger back. She recovered too quickly for my liking, fire flashing in her eyes. "You can try to tame me, pirate," she hissed, "but you will need far more than this." I leaned back, crossing my arms, studying her like a lion studies its prey. Good. I do enjoy a challenge. She did not yet know. But the battle was already lost, because sooner or later, she would beg me to set her aflame.
The music echoed through the great hall like a savage call. Violins out of tune, drums beaten without rhythm, a wild chaos that set the air aflame. The castle's hall was a temple of debauchery. Women danced on tables, laughing loudly as rough hands reached for them without restraint. Pirates roared with drink and hunger, drowning themselves in rum and flesh alike. Candles burned tall, casting wild shadows across the stone walls, turning the place into a living heart of noise and sin. And in the middle of it all, he, Salvatore Navarro, seated at the center of the hall, on a throne of leather and iron, like a king without a crown, legs apart, shoulders relaxed, a glass of rum balanced lazily in his hand. His eyes were not on me, but I felt them, everywhere. Then she appeared, a red-haired woman, with hair like fire spilling down her back, green eyes gleaming like poison. She slid beside him, moving as if she already knew her place. Her hand brushed his shoulder. Her lips grazed his jaw, and he let her. My stomach twisted. He did not push her away. He did not care. He did not even look at me, and I hated it. "Rum? Princess?" The voice pulled me back. Reed, his scarred face softened by something almost kind. He stood nearby, careful not to intrude. He held a bottle and a cup, offering it as politely as any courtier at a royal feast. "Perhaps it will ease the tension," he said with a crooked smile. Without thinking, I took the cup and drank. The strong scent of alcohol filled my lungs before the liquid even touched my tongue. It burned down my throat like fire, forcing a trembling breath from me. But I swallowed. Again and again. The world blurred. Laughter and music grew distant, muffled as if wrapped in fog. For a fleeting moment, I felt light, free, like the storm inside me had quieted, until the floor shifted beneath me. I staggered. The world spun. Reed was quick. His hand caught my arm, steadying me gently. His grip was firm, but not cruel. Then the storm broke. The impact of a fist struck Reed before I even understood what had happened. Salvatore's punch landed with brutal force, sending Reed back a step, though not to the ground. The hall froze. Laughter and music cut off as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Reed touched the blood on his lip, then chuckled, shaking his head. "If I had known, Captain," he said lightly, "I would have offered her wine instead." He lifted his hands in surrender, backing away. But Salvatore did not laugh. He did not look at me. Not yet. He drained the rest of his rum in one long pull, then hurled the bottle against the wall. The shattering glass rang like thunder across the silent hall. My body froze. My breath caught in my chest. Then his eyes found mine. Sharp, dark, burning. The weight of that gaze pressed down on me, heavy as chains. Before I could move, I was lifted off my feet. I screamed, struggling, but his arm locked around me like iron. "Scoundrel!" I shouted, pounding my fists against his back. He did not falter. His grip on me was unshakable, his strides swift and merciless as he carried me away from the feast, away from the hall, away from the world. "Put me down!" I demanded, thrashing. He ignored me. The stone steps echoed under his boots as he dragged me higher, deeper into the castle. My heart pounded, the heat of rum still burning in my veins, leaving me weak against his strength. The door slammed shut behind us, and suddenly, it was only him and me. The silence was deafening. The air between us was alive, heavy, ready to ignite. I felt him before I saw him, his presence filling the room like a storm ready to break. When I lifted my eyes, he was already there. Too close, his jaw tight, his gaze lethal. "You think you can amuse yourself with another man, princess?" His voice was low, dangerous like the crack of a whip. I straightened, folding my arms, forcing myself to withstand the fire crawling up my skin. He was only helping me. His eyes narrowed, a spark of something fierce gleaming in them. "Reed should never have come near you." He moved closer, his presence consuming mine, trapping me without a touch. Only then did I realize my mistake. He did not look merely angry. He looked hungry. "You think you can provoke me?" he growled. His fingers brushed my arm, sliding upward, slow and deliberate, until they seized my chin. My body burned under his touch. I hated it. I hated him, but my body no longer knew the difference between hatred and fire. "Is it a game you want, princess?" His breath mingled with mine, hot, merciless. "Then I promise you, I will win." His mouth crashed against mine. There was no gentleness, no restraint. It was fierce. It was wrong. It was inevitable. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me against him, his strength leaving me no escape. I should have pushed him away. I should have stopped him, but I kissed him back. And in that moment, I knew I was already burning.
Daphne slept in my bed, the sheets tangled around her body like waves clinging to the shore. The faint light of dawn brushed her golden skin, painting her in fragile beauty. I should not have stayed. I should not have been there, watching her breathe, memorizing the way her lips parted, the way her hair spilled over the pillow like dark ink. But I did, too long. I tore my gaze away, dressing in silence. The weight of her lingered on me, an obsession I needed to crush, before it consumed me whole. I was not a man who belonged to anything, and Daphne Callistratos was a chain I wanted shackled to my wrists. I left the chamber, boots striking against the cold stone. Reed awaited at the entrance to the treasure caves, alongside a hooded man newly arrived from the continent. "Informant. He brings news from the Ottoman Empire," Reed said. "Speak." The man hesitated, then lowered his hood. "The Sultan is furious. He believes you betrayed him. Rumors say he is sending a fleet to claim the princess." I smirked, slow and scornful. "He feels dishonored, and why should I care?" The man swallowed hard, eyes flicking away from. "He will come for you, with war." I laughed, a low, dangerous sound. "Let him. I'll be waiting." I dismissed them, stepping into the heart of the cavern. Shadows clung to the walls, lit only by flickering torches. The treasures of empires lay scattered across the stone floor, gold spilling from open chests, jeweled crowns abandoned, blades encrusted with history and blood, and I knew she was there. I felt her presence before I saw her, Her footsteps, hesitant but daring, followed me into the depths. She thought I didn't notice. But I did. Always. I let her believe she was unseen, her wide eyes drinking in the mountains of gold and silver, her delicate hands tracing carvings etched into the stone walls, tales of pirates, of wars, of blood and fire. Then I moved, quick, precise. Before she could flee, I pressed her back against the wall and closed the door of stone behind us. The sound echoed like thunder in the dark. Daphne's breath caught. The chamber was dim, silent but for the beat of her heart and the weight of my presence. "Salvatore?" she whispered, her voice trembling, not with fear alone, but with something she could not admit. I did not answer. I circled her slowly, a predator savoring his prey. My shadow slid over her, heavy as the ocean. She tried to move, but her hands met my chest instead. Hard muscle beneath thin fabric, heat radiating from me into her skin. Her body stiffened, her breath faltered. I leaned close enough for her to feel the warmth of my words against her ear. "You like danger, don't you, princess?" I murmured, my voice a low, dark threat. Her hands trembled against me, pushing weakly. "I want to leave. I don't like this." "Don't you?" I caught her wrist, not cruelly, but firmly, pressing her back against the cold stone. Her eyes burned with defiance, though her body betrayed her with every shallow breath. "You may tell yourself you hate me," I whispered, my gaze locked on hers. "But your eyes, your heartbeat, they say otherwise." Her lips parted, as if to protest. I silenced her with my mouth. The kiss was not gentle. It was a theft, a storm, stripping her of air and will alike. She struggled, her fists striking my chest, but weakly, hesitant, and then she yielded. Her body gave in to the fire between us, the fire neither of us could deny. When I pulled away, I saw it in her eyes, fury, hatred, and something else, something she refused to name. I smiled, slow and merciless. "You see, princess, you are mine. Whether you accept it today or tomorrow makes no difference." Her chest rose and fell, her hands shaking at her sides. I leaned close once more, whispering against her skin like a curse. "And I never return what I steal."
The sun dipped low on the horizon as we returned to the castle. The courtyard boiled with life, the sound of clashing swords, heavy footsteps pounding against the dirt, shouts and laughter filling the air like the song of chaos. Pirates trained, sweat and dust clinging to their worn clothes, the sharp scent of salt ever present. I stopped at the entrance, watching, fascinated. There was something brutal and hypnotic in the scene before me. Men spun their blades with deadly skill, attacking and defending in a violent ballet. The clash of steel rang out like a cruel kind of music. Then I felt it, his gaze. When I turned, Salvatore was watching me, a lazy half-smile on his lips, arms crossed over his chest. "Have you ever held a sword before, princess?" His voice carried sharp amusement. "Yes," I answered without hesitation. His eyes gleamed with something dangerous. "Good. Then we'll train. Next time I set sail, you're coming with me." Shock ran through me like lightning. It was the first time he had spoken of me beyond this castle, beyond this island, as though, somehow, I belonged to his world. And despite everything, despite knowing I was his prisoner, the thought warmed me in ways I did not expect. He stepped back a few paces, drawing his sword and spinning it before driving the blade into the earth. "But first, we need to make you more comfortable." Before I could react, he pulled a dagger from his belt, and with a swift movement, sliced through the length of my skirt, ripping it open from knee to waist. A startled cry rose in my throat, but died there when I realized he wasn't mocking me. His eyes didn't hold ridicule. No, his gaze assessed me like a predator studies its prey. My undergarments clung to me in the heat, my shirt loosened at the neckline, my corset hugging my waist, boots firm in the dirt. His tongue swept across his lips in satisfaction. "Better. Later we'll get you real trousers." Before I could find words, he tore a strip of fabric from the ruined skirt and, without ceremony, pulled my hair back, tying it into a firm tail. His touch was rough, hot, like everything about him. My heart pounded as I felt his nearness, the smell of rum, sea, and power radiating off him like a spell. "There," he said, pleased, fingers still entangled in my hair. "Now you look less like a princess, and more like mine." I swallowed hard. A woman must know how to defend herself on the field. You never know. His voice dropped as he twirled the sword before pointing it at me. "But you needn't worry. I will always protect you." My stomach tightened. "Always? You don't know what might happen. You haven't found the secret to immortality, Captain." He laughed, his eyes glinting with dark amusement. "No, but I'm close." I lowered my eyes to the sword he offered me. The weight was familiar, the wood of the hilt rough against my palm. The air was thick with expectation, eyes turning toward us. But above all, I felt Salvatore. And then we clashed. Steel whistled through the air, the shock of our blades vibrating through my arms down to the bone. The impact was fierce, a warning that he would not go easy on me. He stepped back, spinning his sword effortlessly before lunging again, quick and precise. I dodged at the last second, boots sliding in the dirt as I spun aside. My heart thundered, every muscle alive, every fiber tuned to the battle between us. He struck again, harder this time. I raised my sword just in time to block. The impact jolted my arm, but I held firm. "Good defense, princess," he said, his tone low, edged with challenge. He tested me, his blade slicing the air like silver lightning before coming for me again. I blocked, moving fast, trying to surprise him with a side attack. He parried cleanly, sliding back with predatory patience. My breath came fast, chest rising and falling. I lunged. My sword cut diagonally toward him. He raised his blade, deflecting easily, his eyes glinting with fire. We were face to face, close enough that I saw the smirk curve his mouth. "You're doing well, but you can do better." The provocation ignited something inside me. I attacked again. Our blades rang, the force vibrating in my hands. Each move he pushed me harder, testing me, forcing me to predict, to calculate. My body spun, my lungs burned, every clash driving me closer to my limits. He was enjoying this. I saw it in his eyes, in the way his grin widened each time I blocked him, in the way he moved with lethal fluid grace. And then he struck low. He moved too fast, his blade hitting mine with a force that made me stumble. Before I could recover, he spun, slicing the air with precision, knocking my sword clean from my grip. In an instant, I was cornered. My chest slammed against his weight crushing the breath from me. His cold blade pressed against my collarbone, his hot hand gripping my wrist to hold me still. His knee slid between my legs, pinning me. My heart raced. Sweat slid across my skin, my shirt clinging to me. Strands of hair fell across my face as I struggled to steady my breath. "You're too easily distracted, princess," he mocked softly. The scent of leather, rum, and sea clung to him, mingling with the heat rising in my own body. The sword still rested between us. But even cold steel could not cut through the heat consuming us both. I should have pulled away. I should have pushed him back. But instead, I did something far worse. I kissed him. It was quick, wild, mouth against mouth, an impulse I couldn't contain. I felt his surprise, just for a heartbeat. And then he responded. His hands tightened on my skin, his body pressing harder against mine with dangerous hunger. Before he could claim more, before I lost the last shred of reason, I pulled back. My heart thundered. My breath came ragged, and I ran. My boots pounded the dirt courtyard, carrying me by instinct alone. Behind me, I heard his laugh, low, rough, satisfied, and then his promise, dark, certain. "Run, princess, but I will always find you." I reached my chamber breathless, heart racing, fear burning through me like wildfire. What had I done? I had kissed him. No, worse. I had wanted to kiss him. Yes, we had done more before, but this time it had been me. I had reached for him. I had wanted his lips, as though my body no longer knew the difference between desire and danger. What was happening to me? Why did I not feel like a captive even though I was his prisoner? Why, when I was beside the man who had taken me, did I feel more free than ever?
When I entered the chamber, she was asleep. Beautiful, perfect, mine. Moonlight poured through the window, spilling across her golden skin, tracing every curve, every detail I had already carved into my memory. I lay beside her, pulling her close, molding her warmth against mine. Tonight, I needed nothing else. Only the rhythm of her breathing against me. Only the fire she set inside me without even knowing. She had given me something more valuable than all the spoils I had ever claimed. She wanted me. She kissed me. I closed my eyes, inhaling her scent, engraving that moment into the deepest part of me. Tomorrow, we would set sail on our first journey together. The princess and the pirate. The night was heavy, the wind howling across the deck, carrying the sharp bite of salt. Sails billowed, ropes were tightened, cannons checked. A storm gathered on the horizon, lightning slashing silver across the sky, as though the gods themselves waited for chaos to begin. And then the murmurs chained. A strange silence swept over the crew. Their eyes all turned in one direction. Some faces held surprise, others sly grins, and more than a few carried open admiration. I followed their stares, then felt my chest tighten before I even saw her fully. Daphne Callistratos, dressed like a pirate. Black leather trousers clung to her legs as though tailored by the sea itself. A white shirt tied at the waist revealed the outline of her figure. A dark corset framed her chest, and over it, the cropped jacket of a captain, one I had left for her. Her hair was tied low, strands loose and wild in the wind, shaping her face with untamed beauty. For a moment, I didn't know what angered me more, that she looked devastatingly radiant, or that I wasn't the only one who noticed. She walked with confidence, her eyes blazing with a fire I had never seen in her. Daphne seemed alive, too alive, and the other bastards saw it too. Their stares lingered far too long. One man, Thomas, even whistled under his breath. My jaw tightened. Well. I leaned lazily against the rail, crossing my arms, feigning indifference while rage burned under my skin. Barely aboard, and you're already enjoying the life of a pirate? She arched an eyebrow, pretending to be unmoved. And if I am? Behind her, Reed laughed, and I realized he wasn't the only one listening. The provocation in her tone dragged a laugh from, perhaps to hide the storm raging inside. Then perhaps I'm a better teacher than I thought. Her lips curved into a half-smile. Just show me how it all works, Captain. I stepped closer, adjusting my hat. You'll regret giving me that freedom, Princess. She held my gaze boldly. I doubt it. Thunder roared above us. And then we sailed. The waters grew restless as we approached our target. Gold from South America, bound for England, carried aboard a merchant ship under royal guard. But not enough guard. The sea was my empire, my true crown. And Daphne was by my side, her gaze locked on the horizon, her hair whipping in the wind, her expression sharp with focus. She was not nervous. She was not the fragile princess I had stolen from a royal ship. She looked ready. The sails stretched wide, slicing through the waves like a blade. The crew awaited my command, taut with anticipation. Daphne stood among them, eyes alight with adrenaline, the same hunger I saw in my men before battle. I leaned closer, my lips brushing her ear. Shall we play, Princess? Her breath caught, but she nodded. My smile was pure danger. Then prepare yourself. The enemy ship emerged on the horizon. Raise the black flag, I roared. The order was carried instantly. The black banner unfurled in the wind, and panic spread across the merchant. They knew who we were, but it was already too late. The first thunder of our cannons shook the sea, iron tearing holes through their hull. Screams carried on the wind, swallowed by the roar of fire and salt. The merchant ship rocked violently, but still they tried to fight. Board them! Hooks flew, ropes tightened, and my men climbed like demons unleashed. Daphne hesitated only a heartbeat. Then she grabbed a rope and swung up beside me. Part of me wanted to stop her. The other part wanted to see what she would do. We landed together on the enemy deck, and hell broke loose. Blades clashed. Blood spilled across the planks. The cries of men drowned beneath the ocean's fury. I turned in time to see a soldier charging her. Daphne raised her sword. Steel rang against steel. For a moment, the man's strength bore down on her, his weight forcing her back. But then she moved, spinning, turning his own force against him. Her blade sliced his side, crimson spreading across his shirt. He stumbled, and she struck again. Her sword arced down in a flash of silver beneath the moon. The man fell, dead. She froze. Her chest heaved, eyes wide, fixed on the body at her feet. I watched her closely, waiting, for fear, for horror, for regret. But I saw none of it, only something fierce, wild. Her lips parted, as if she had just discovered something new inside herself. Her eyes lifted to mine, and she smiled. That was incredible. My laugh came low, rough, proud. Welcome to my world, Princess. She lifted her chin, still breathless, her fingers tightening on the hilt of her sword. Then she turned toward her next enemy. The victory was ours.
The wind cut across my skin like invisible blades, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside me. A hurricane tore through my chest, violent and uncontrollable. Salvatore's words still echoed in my mind, searing against me like a brand of fire. I have never wanted something so much, Daphne. Those words, they were both an anchor and a shipwreck. The way he spoke them, the conviction in his voice, the brutality of his desire. He wanted me. And it wasn't a frivolous want, not a fleeting desire. He had defied empires, provoked kings, spat in the face of the world because of me. And the worst of all, something inside me liked it. My chest rose and fell quickly. How could I ignore it? How could I ignore the way something in me shattered and rebuilt itself the moment I heard him say those words? I couldn't. And that was what destroyed me. Because if I admitted what I felt, if I surrendered to the truth that my heart was no longer mine alone, what would remain of me when they took me back? What would happen when this illusion ended? I knew I would not remain here forever. Destiny had always been a blade hanging over my throat, and I knew sooner or later it would cut. My mind screamed at me to pull away, but my body did the opposite. When the ship docked at the island, the adrenaline of the raid still rushed through my veins. It was intoxicating, addictive, as if freedom itself had been stitched into my skin. I disembarked with the pirates, watching them unload gold, laughing, drinking, celebrating. The smell of rum and sea mingled with the warm breeze. The air pulsed with life, with energy, and for once, I was part of it. Not as a prisoner, but as someone free. My eyes met Salvatore's, and something inside me twisted, knotted tight, impossible to undo. "Thank you," I whispered. He frowned. "For what?" My mouth opened, and before I could stop myself, the truth escaped. "For this. For showing me there's something beyond the bars where I've always lived." My heart hammered as I added softly, "I've never felt so free in my life." His gaze darkened, something fierce and dangerous burning in his eyes. I didn't think. I stepped forward and embraced him. He tensed for a moment, surprised by the gesture. But then his hand slid around my waist and pulled me hard against his chest, strong, possessive, as if he wanted me inside his very soul. I buried my face against his neck, the scent of salt, leather, and storm enveloping me like an invisible chain. And then he kissed me. This time, I didn't resist. My fingers tangled in his dark hair, my lips parting to welcome him, his taste mixed with mine, his mouth claiming me, slow but certain. My heart raced, and for one perfect moment, the world around us disappeared. But then, something changed. The silence fell like a sharp blade. A chill slid down my spine. Salvatore went rigid, his body tightening against mine. I opened my eyes slowly, and I saw them. Torches gleamed against the white sand of the beach. Men in heavy armor advanced in formation, their steps measured, relentless. And at their center, King Alistair Thornfield. My body froze. My betrothed, my executioner. They had come for me? Salvatore stepped forward, his muscles coiled for battle. His eyes turned into a raging ocean, black and endless. "Behind me," he commanded, his voice like a whip that brooked no argument. Terror spread across my skin, not for myself, but for the man who would defy the world for me. Alistair's gaze fixed on us, sculpted from pure hatred. He did not look at me as a man longing for his bride. He looked at me as a king seeking to destroy the one who dared challenge him. Salvatore had challenged him. The moon cast angular shadows across Alistair's face, making him look even more menacing. His white stallion, adorned with royal crests, reared slightly under the tension that thickened the battlefield. He raised his gloved hand, and the blade of his sword caught the moonlight like a cruel omen. "Kill them all." His voice tore through the silence like steel. Chaos erupted. Soldiers charged like a storm of steel and blood. Salvatore drew his sword and pushed me behind him, his body a shield against the world. "Fight!" he roared like thunder. The pirates unsheathed their blades, answering their captain's call. Steel clashed with steel. Screams mingled with the roar of the sea. The courtyard became a battlefield. Fear froze my chest. But there was no time for hesitation. Salvatore cut down the first soldier who dared approach him. His movements were swift, precise, deadly. His blade spun like an extension of his own body, disarming and killing with brutal efficiency. Every strike was a warning. This was not a man who surrendered. Then I saw him. A soldier lunged at me. My hands shook, but I gripped the dagger Salvatore had given me days before. The man tried to seize me, but I twisted aside and drove the blade deep into his thigh. His scream tore through the night, and he collapsed. Another strike came too fast. Cold metal sliced across my arm before I could block. Pain seared through me, and I stumbled to the ground. The world spun. The scent of blood mixed with salt filled my lungs. My chest heaved. I lifted my head in time to see Salvatore's blade pierce the heart of the man who had attacked me. Our eyes met. "Salvatore!" My voice cracked with panic. "Run, Daphne!" he roared, spinning to meet another foe. But there was nowhere to run. The ground trembled. Hooves thundered like storms ripping through the night. And then I saw them. From the other side of the island, an army emerged from the shadows. Not English. Men in dark turbans, robes flowing, armor gleaming with the crescent moon. The Ottomans. The Sultan had sent his army. My eyes locked on Salvatore's, and for the first time, he hesitated. The English attacked from one side, the Ottomans from the other. We were surrounded. "Salvatore!" I screamed his name in pure desperation. He heard me. He always heard me. But the world collapsed around us. English and Ottomans clashed in a storm of steel and fury. The beach turned red with blood. Pirates shouted as they fought for their lives. The sea roared against the rocks, as if it too shared our agony. And then it happened. A harsh metallic snap to my left. Rough hands seized my arms. No! I thrashed, kicked, clawed, bit, but they were too strong. Salvatore roared when he saw me being dragged. He charged toward me, carving through soldiers, each strike savage, each movement desperate to reach me. But another blow came. A brutal fist crashed against his temple, staggering him. Another hit struck his ribs. He fell to his knees. No! My scream tore through the night, but I could do nothing. A sharp crack split the air. I saw a head roll. Alistair was there, mounted on his horse, blood dripping from his blade. He looked less like a king and more like death itself. His eyes found mine. My heart stopped. He spurred his horse forward, cutting through corpses. The blade lifted. I screamed. Arms wrapped around me, pulling me upward. The world spun. I kicked, clawed, tried to hold on to anything, but I was already his. Salvatore screamed my name. His eyes blazed with fury, with fear, for me. The Ottomans closed in around him, chains clattered, blades flashed. Daphne! His roar split the night as he fought, as he bled, as he refused to yield. Salvatore! My voice broke, my body trembling with terror, but it was too late. The English soldiers held me fast on Alistair's horse. The Ottomans bound Salvatore in chains. He fought, still fought, but the weight of defeat pressed down upon us both. Daphne! He strained against them, only to be struck down again. I reached for him. He reached for me, but our fingers never touched. I saw the ships waiting. I saw them dragging Salvatore away in the opposite direction. The sea was a graveyard of bodies, the sand drowned in blood beneath the cold light of the moon. I thrashed wildly, not caring if I broke bones trying to escape. Let me go! My scream split the night. I couldn't leave him. Not like this. Salvatore still fought, even bound, even crushed beneath their weight. But there were too many. They slammed him to the ground, forcing iron around his wrists. The sound of shackles locking rang in my skull like thunder. Salvatore! He tried to rise, muscles straining, blood covering his face, but they forced him down again. His eyes never left mine. I reached for him. He reached for me. Our hands stretched desperately toward each other, but we did not reach. Fate ripped him from me like a wave tearing a ship apart. No! 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 My screams were raw, animal, my throat tearing as I fought like a caged beast. Alistair's grip closed around my waist, holding me against him. Enough! His voice was low, sharp as steel. He pulled the reins. The horse reared, and we fled. The wind lashed my face. My skin burned where his armor pressed against me. I looked back, terror choking me. Salvatore still fought against the chains, against the Ottomans, against destiny itself. But they dragged him away, his figure fading into the night mist. The last thing I saw were his eyes, dark, furious, shattered. And then I heard it. His scream tore through the night, slicing my soul like an invisible blade. Daphne! My throat burned as I answered, tasting the salt of my tears. Salvatore! But it was too late. They threw me into the boat. My vision blurred with metal and shadows. The sea swallowed us whole, and darkness fell over me.
The Sultan's hall was vast, lit by golden torches and crystal chandeliers hanging from the high ceiling, their glow reflecting on walls covered with rich tapestry. Luxurious cushions were scattered across the floor, and the scent of incense and spices hung in the air, mingling with the aroma of wine and fresh fruit laid out on golden trays. I should have been impressed. I should have been concerned. But in that moment, the only thing that mattered to me was the weight of the chains on my wrists, and the fact that Daphne was far from my reach. At the center of the room, seated on a throne adorned with sapphires and emeralds, was Ibrahim, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. His gaze was sharp as a blade, and the faint smile on his lips told me he was amused by my presence there. You should be dead, Salvatore, for stealing what is mine. His voice cracked through the silence like a whip, echoing against the marble columns of the palace. My lips curved into a slow, insolent smile, and yet here I stand, still breathing. The Sultan tilted his head slightly, eyes studying me as though I were an animal ready for sacrifice. He was not a man of mercy. He never had been. When Mehmed, my finest sailor, brought you to me 20 years ago, swearing you would become the greatest pirate of the 7 seas, I laughed. Ibrahim let out a humorless chuckle. But you proved yourself. For years you plundered Western ships, kept order on the waters, and filled my coffers with gold. Until today, you have been one of my most loyal men. He paused, his dark eyes gleaming dangerously. But now, you have stolen something that belongs to me, and betrayal has a price. The hall fell silent. The guards around us gripped the hilts of their swords, ready to cut me down at the slightest order. My heart pounded, not from fear. I had never feared death, but every second that passed was one more in which Daphne drifted farther from me. A low, mocking laugh escaped me. "Sultan, you have a harem of more than 300 women. How did you expect to manage one more? Especially my Daphne. She is insatiable." The silence was absolute. The guards moved, steel sliding from sheaths. The Sultan's gaze remained fixed on me, unchanging. And then, he laughed. A slow, dragged laugh that made his soldiers ease and his advisors exchange uneasy looks. But I knew Ibrahim. He never laughed when he was pleased. He laughed when he was about to crush a man. "You think this is a joke, Salvatore?" His voice lost every trace of humor. I raised my chin, my smile fading, because to me, Daphne had never been a joke. "No." My voice came out firm. "But you dragged me here and took me away from her. Now my woman is in the hands of my wretched half-brother. And that, Sultan, you should never have allowed." The Sultan's stare sharpened further. He was not a man who tolerated defiance, least of all from someone who had been one of his most valuable agents. He leaned back on his throne, fingers tapping against the golden armrest, his expression unreadable. "Do you not realize that having her here would have given me access to Western Europe through Greece?" He tilted his head, as if explaining something obvious to a fool. Daphne Callistratos was not just a royal bride. She was a key. I did not only want her beauty, Salvatore. I wanted her bloodline. My jaw tightened. "You wanted to use her. Don't be naive." The Sultan laughed without humor. "Since when do men of power not use their pieces on the board? Daphne was my guarantee that, by marrying her, I would not only have a pretext but a legitimate passage to consolidate my influence in Europe, and you took that from me." Blood thundered in my veins. I knew Daphne was valuable, knew her lineage carried weight, but hearing the Sultan speak of her as nothing more than a key to his schemes made me want to rip his throat out with my bare hands. To me, she is no strategy. My teeth clenched, my voice low, dark, and final. "And if you know me well, Sultan, you know I never surrender what belongs to me." The silence was suffocating. Ibrahim studied me for a long moment before sighing slowly. "Then what do you propose, Salvatore? For the years of loyalty, I will listen." A quiet laugh escaped me. He was curious, and curiosity was an advantage. "I want her, that much is clear. But what will you offer me in return?" I stepped forward, ignoring the guards who moved to restrain me. "You want Europe, don't you?" His eyes gleamed with interest. "Go on." My heart thundered. I was about to do something unthinkable, something that would change history itself. "We will take England." The words came sharp as blades. The Sultan went silent. Shock flickered for only a heartbeat before it was replaced with something I knew well: ambition. "You will lead the Ottoman fleet and overthrow your own half-brother?" My eyes darkened. "Yes. And when I do, I will give you the throne. You will not only have Greece, you will have almost all of Europe." A tense silence spread through the hall. The Sultan watched me as though I had handed him a gift too great to believe. His mind was racing, weighing risks and rewards. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Interesting." Ibrahim leaned forward on his throne, slowly twisting a golden ring around his finger. He was already considering it, already tasting the power. But I wasn't finished. "There is one more thing." His eyes narrowed. "What else do you want, Salvatore?" My breath came heavy. I was about to risk everything. "When England falls, Daphne is mine." The Sultan gave a slow, dragging laugh. "All this for her, is it? What is it about this woman that makes you lose your reason?" My answer came without hesitation. Raw, brutal, absolute. "She is my only woman." The Sultan studied me, his gaze piercing like a dagger. "And for her, you would betray even the devil?" A crooked smile pulled at my lips. "If I had to, I'd do worse." The hall went silent. For a moment, Ibrahim only stared. He knew I was serious. He knew this was no game. And then, slowly, he nodded. "Very well, Salvatore. You will lead my fleet against England. You will overthrow your half-brother. And in return, Daphne will be yours." The throne room felt heavier, thick with incense and power. Ibrahim sat twisting his ring, eyes measuring my... The deal was sealed, but there was still more to be said. "So it is done," he finally said, rising, adjusting the sleeves of his gold-embroidered robe. "Salvatore Navarro will lead my fleet. England will fall." Men murmured throughout the hall, some skeptical, others calculating. They all knew what was at stake. "And Daphne?" My voice cut the air like a blade. The Sultan smiled, cold and dangerous. "She will be yours when the English throne is mine." A current of fury surged down my spine. I hated the way he spoke of her, as if she were a prize. But I did not argue. I would play this game to the very end. "I want to leave at once." The Sultan waved a hand lazily, as if he had expected my urgency. "The fleet is at your disposal. My generals will aid in the preparations." I had already turned to go when he spoke again. "And Salvatore," I stopped. "Do not fail. I turned back, narrowing my eyes. I never fail. The port of Constantinople was alive. Soldiers marched in formation. Commands rang out across the docks. Banners of the Ottoman Empire snapped in the wind. The ships stood in rows, imposing, their black sails marked with the crescent moon. More than 50 vessels, armed for destruction. I boarded the largest, my mind racing in 1,000 directions. Each wave that struck the hull carried me closer to Daphne. She was in England, surrounded by enemies, trapped in the golden cage of a king unworthy of. But now, I was coming. The sea opened before us as the fleet set sail, and for the first time in my life, I was ready to burn the entire world for a single woman.
The dress was heavy. Every thread of gold and silver embroidery felt like invisible chains, binding me to the ground, reminding me there was nowhere to run. The corridors of the royal castle stretched endlessly. The echo of my footsteps against the cold stone sounded like the drums of an execution. And that was what this was. I was not walking toward a wedding. I was walking toward my death, the death of everything I had once been. The hall was crowded. Nobles of England, allies of France, ambassadors from Spain, all watching my condemnation with polite smiles and calculating eyes. Candles blazed in golden chandeliers, their light reflected in the jewels of royalty. But to me, everything was gray, lifeless. At the altar, Alistair waited. He wore his king's armor, crafted to impress, to display his power and invincibility. But I saw him for what he truly was, my executioner. And I was the offering upon the altar of sacrifice. My heart did not beat. Not anymore. It had stopped the day I was torn from Salvatore's arms. When I reached the steps of the altar, a hollow void opened inside me. The air thickened. My vision dimmed for a moment. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my legs kept moving, step after step, each one another nail in my coffin. The air grew thin when I stood beside him. Alistair smiled, a victorious smile, a predator's smile. The ceremony began. The bishop spoke sacred words, but they blurred into noise. My ears rang, blocking all sound. The only thing I could remember were Salvatore's hands holding me, his voice calling my name, his gaze, fierce and desperate, as he was dragged away. Daphne, I closed my eyes. Do you take King Alistair Thornfield as your lawful husband? A suffocating silence fell upon the court. My heart screamed a deafening no, but my lips said, I do. And in that moment, I died. The ring slid onto my finger, a shackle disguised as a promise. Alistair seized my hand and led me through the hall as the guests applauded, raising their goblets to his triumph. But my body was cold. I was a doll dressed in gold, without soul, without life. If I closed my eyes, I could almost pretend I wasn't there. But when the gates closed behind us, when the castle's corridors swallowed us whole, the truth cut into me like a blade. I was alone with him, and the wedding night had come. The door shut behind us. The silence was sharp, deadly. Alistair removed his crown, setting it on the table. Then he turned to me. So, my queen, he stepped forward, his cold eyes scanning my body draped in the bridal gown. Are you prepared to fulfill your duty? Dread slithered down my spine. I knew there was no escape. He came closer, his fingers reaching for the ties of my dress. Slowly, deliberately, he began to undo them, savoring every second. My skin prickled, not with desire, with revulsion. Nothing to say? He whispered near my ear, his breath hot, venomous. I could have stayed silent, but I wanted to wound him, to make him feel at least a fragment of the pain consuming me. So I did. I forced a hollow, cruel smile. You know, Alistair? My voice was a whisper, sharp as steel. You won't be the first. He froze, his eyes hardened. Fury spread across his features like a black storm. What did you say? I tilted my head, gaze unyielding. Salvatore claimed me before you. The explosion came like thunder. His hand struck my face, brutal, sending my head snapping to the side. Pain reverberated through my skull, the taste of metal spreading in my mouth. You wretch! His voice shook with rage. You gave yourself to that cursed pirate? I laughed. Low. Dark. No. My eyes locked on his, without fear, without hesitation, only pure contempt. I gave myself to a real man, a man who made me want to belong to him. His face twisted with fury, but I went on, my voice cold as sharpened steel. You? You could never compare to him. The air between us crackled, heavy with suffocating hatred. I braced for the next blow, but still I continued. Even sharing the same blood, the same father, you couldn't be more different, because you, Alistair, will never be a fraction of the man he is. Another strike came, harder. knocking me to the ground. My hands pressed into the fur rug, my chest heaving. The pain was nothing compared to the emptiness inside me. Alistair loomed above me, breath ragged, fists clenched. He wanted to break me, but I was already broken. Nothing he did could be worse than what I already felt. Stand up. His voice was a growl. I didn't move. He grabbed my hair, yanking my head back, forcing me to look at him. His eyes burned with hate. You will be mine, Daphne. I spat in his face. He yanked me to my feet and threw me onto the bed. My breath came ragged, my vision blurred, but I never looked away. My gaze dripped with disdain, because in the end I was still free where it mattered most. He would never have my soul, nor my heart. Alistair wiped his face slowly and smiled. Then, my queen, his tone was lethal. If it's war you want, war you shall have. And in that moment I knew. I would live through hell at his side, but I would never bow. And one day, Salvatore would come for me. I only had to survive until then.
The wind carried the smell of salt and smoke, lashing my face as though the storm of fate itself was pushing me toward war. The sun rose on the horizon, staining the sky in shades of orange and scarlet, its reflection on the calm sea, too calm for the fury burning inside me. Hold on, Daphne. I am coming for. The city roared behind me. Merchants shouted their bargains. Ottoman soldiers loaded supplies for the ships. And my men, pirates shaped by the sea and by war, sharpened their blades, ready to spill blood. The greatest fleet ever assembled, and all of it for one purpose, to take back my woman. The Sultan's political ambitions had made this possible, but I cared nothing for crowns or kingdoms. I wanted only Daphne, and the world could burn for all I cared. Behind me, footsteps approached. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Are you ready? Sultan Ibrahim's voice carried both amusement and threat. My hand tightened around my sword's hilt. I was born ready. He laughed, stopping at my side, his black eyes scanning the ships poised to set sail. Understand this, pirate. You are throwing away your entire life for a woman. For her, I would trade the world itself. I did not answer. My gaze stayed on the horizon, my heartbeat matching the rhythm of the waves. England will fall, the Sultan, and you will rule it in my name. That is the bargain. A low laugh escaped me. I want nothing of thrones. Ibrahim studied me, then shrugged. Then let us hope she is still alive for reclaim. The first battle came at dawn. The English merchant ship never saw us coming. That was our greatest advantage. Alistair, like all his people, was too arrogant to imagine we would dare such audacity. No one ever had, but I was not no one. I was the terror of the seven seas. I was Salvatore Navarro, and I was coming for my woman. Ottoman sails rose on the horizon like black wings from hell, my fleet surrounding the enemy before they could breathe. The fight was swift, brutal, merciless. Blood slicked the wooden decks. Steel carved through the air like the whips of gods. The dying screamed, their voices lost in the roar of the pitiless sea. I showed no mercy. None of us did. England would never expect an attack of this scale, not from pirates, and not from an entire army. Every ship we sank was a message to Alistair. I am coming. The city burned. Explosions thundered through stone streets, the stench of gunpowder and ash choking. Ottoman ships spilled soldiers into the ports while my pirates seized the docks. The English resisted fiercely. Knights charged with their blades. Muskets fired from windows. Infantry held the castle gates. But it wasn't enough. Take the castle! My voice cracked like thunder, and the men at my side surged forward into the fortress halls. The English barely had time to react. My sword cut down anything in its path. My pirates slit throats and cleared corridors, opening the way for the Sultan's troops waiting for our signal. When we reached the central courtyard, the gates ahead were barred with chains and reinforced bolts. "Break them!" I roared. Two of my men forced at the locks while another hurled a torch into the barrels of powder we had planted. The explosion shook the ground, splintering iron and wood. The gates burst wide. The Ottoman horde surged in like a tidal wave, drowning the courtyard in steel and fire. The throne room became a graveyard, carpets soaked with red as if the stone itself had begun to bleed. Banners burned to ash, the royal emblems nothing but smoke. Guards lay strewn like broken dolls, their armor piled like offerings to a merciless god of war. The stench of scorched flesh and rusted iron clung to my throat, and at the center of it all, on the blood-stained throne, he waited. Alistair Thornfield, the man who stole my woman, the man who took everything, the man who would now lose it all. He held a goblet of wine in one hand and a sword in the other, as though the war tearing his kingdom apart was merely an inconvenience. Wine dripped from the cup, staining his fingers red, a promise of blood yet to come. Our eyes locked. A twisted smile curled his lips. "So, you've come at last for revenge." My grip tightened on my sword. But I did not strike. Not yet. I advanced slowly, each step echoing like drums of. My heart beat with the rhythm of destruction itself. Then I raised my blade and drove it deep into the table between us, splitting the wood as though I had broken his destiny in two. No, Alistair. My voice was ice and thunder. I came for my woman, but if I must, I will burn the world to ash. He laughed, a low, hollow laugh, the sound of a man who knows there is no escape. And then he rose. Steel met steel, blade against blade. The clash rang through the ruined hall, the metallic song of war blending with the screams outside. Strike. He parried. Thrust. I blocked. We circled, two predators fighting for the right to destroy. But I was not fighting for myself. I was fighting for her. Alistair was skilled, but I was a man who had met death countless times until it became an old friend. I fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. An opening. My blade cut through flesh, tearing his thigh. He collapsed, gasping, blood pouring dark across the carpet. I seized his sword, pressing it to his throat. You touched my woman. His chest heaved with shallow breaths. And then he smiled, a sick smile. And I had her, every night. The hall bled into red. Rage seared my vision. But it would not end quickly. He would pay. Reed appeared behind me, silent as a shadow. Together, we forced Alistair back into the throne. Thick ropes bound him tight, cutting into his flesh, drawing blood as he struggled. I stepped close, seizing his hand. Was it with this hand you dared to touch her? His smile twisted with mockery. I did not only touch her, Salvatore. I broke her. When you find her, you'll see. Your Daphne is gone. The sound of my blade cut the air. His scream tore through the hall. Blood splattered, soaking the stones, his cries echoing like the death knell of a kingdom. But my vengeance was not complete. Not yet. I leaned close, my voice low, deadly. You will never touch her again. And with a single strike, my sword pierced his chest. His eyes widened. Blood spilled hot across my arms. The light drained from his gaze. Alistair Thornfield died on the throne he never deserved. I dropped my sword and turned. Daphne was here, somewhere, and nothing could stop me now. The door groaned as I pushed it open. Her scent filled the air. I closed my eyes, breathing deep, bracing myself for what I would find. And then I saw her, at the far end of the room, sitting on the floor against the bed, her knees drawn to her chest, dark hair falling over her face like a curtain. Daphne. My heart nearly stopped. She did not move. The world went silent around me. Smoke from the battle still clung to my clothes. Blood stained my hands. I had killed for her, burned a kingdom for her, and she was there, small, silent, broken. Pain ripped through my chest. I approached slowly, each step careful, afraid I might shatter her further. I knelt before her. She did not blink. She did not stir, like a doll forgotten. Then I saw her arm, and something inside me died. Bruises marred her skin like shadows painted across porcelain. Her white gown was stained with dried blood and invisible tears. My throat burned. Princess! My voice broke. Nothing. I touched her shoulder, barely grazing her. She screamed, like a wounded animal. Her eyes flew wide, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She recoiled violently. Don't touch me! Her hair fell aside, revealing her face. The nightmare. The face I loved. The face I adored. Now covered in bruises and cuts. My breath failed me. The fire, the storm, the wild blaze that lived in her eyes, all extinguished. What sat before me was a shadow of Daphne, and I wanted to slit my own throat for not arriving sooner. Daphne, her name left me as a prayer, as a plea for a miracle. She blinked, as if struggling to recognize, but her gaze slid past, as though I were nothing but a ghost. Fear would have, hate would, but what I saw in her eyes was emptiness. Pure, absolute. Despair gutted me. I touched her cheek, warm, but lifeless. She didn't flinch, didn't move. There was no Daphne. I pulled her into my arm. She was too light, too fragile, as if they had drained her soul. She didn't resist, didn't respond, and that was worse than any wound I had ever taken. The war was won, the throne bathed in blood. England belonged to the Sultan, but none of it mattered, because Daphne was broken, and perhaps even I could not. I carried her through the shattered gates. The Sultan stood waiting, his generals and soldiers at his side. His gaze scanned the destruction, then landed on me, and he smiled. We had a deal, pirate. Where do you think you're going? My jaw clenched. I held Daphne tighter. Yes, we had a deal. I gave you England, and I took back my woman. Now we leave. His eyes lingered on her. Too long, too heavy. Pity, hatred surged inside me. I did not want anyone to look at her that way. I said, you would govern England in my name, he said coldly. You dare defy me? Yes. Remaining here would kill her. Every stone of this castle reeked of her suffering. Daphne would never heal here, never be mine again. So I did what I always did. I wore my mask of arrogance. Fear burned in me, but my voice came strong, unshaken. If you wish to kill me, then do it. My steps echoed as I carried her onward, but I will not stay. I will not condemn her to this place. I turned my eyes to his. I am returning to my island. If you want me, you know where to find me. His guards moved, but Ibrahim raised his hand, halting them. You think yourself free, he said quietly, almost curious. But you are chained to her, and what if she never returns to you? My body tensed. She is mine, perhaps. His gaze darkened, heavy with something I despised, pity. But what if the woman you love no longer exists? My blood burned. Then I will love her as she is. The Sultan chuckled, dry, mocking. You are a fool, pirate, perhaps. But Daphne was worth it. This is your throne, Salvatore, he said, his voice venomous. The blood of kings runs in your veins. A bitter laugh tore from me. And what use is that blood to me? Some are born to rule. I was born to destroy. My throne has only ever been powder, steel, and sea. The silence cut like a blade. Reed stood at my side, hand on his sword, ready to fight our way out if needed. But I did not. I kept my head high. With respect, Sultan, I understand your hunger for power, but it is not mine. Crowns, thrones, land, none of it matters. Nothing but her. I adjusted Daphne in my arms, her fragile weight against my chest. Marry one of Alistair's sisters to one of your heirs. You'll have royal English blood enough to strengthen your line. Ibrahim studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled. You are a fool, Salvatore. Perhaps. But she mattered more than any empire. I turned my back and walked away. My men followed. No command was needed. We boarded our ships, and we sailed home, to our island. And for the first time in my life, I knew I had only one mission in this world, to heal my princess.
I was dead. I had to be. Because life was pain. Life was fear. Life was Alistair whispering in the dark, his hand gripping my face, his cold eyes reminding me that I was nothing, less than nothing. Life was stone floors beneath my knees, the reek of wine on his breath, the bitter taste of defeat in my mouth. But here, there was no pain. The castle's cutting chill was gone. The drafts of winter wind did not creep through the windows to fold me into a trembling shadow. Here, the world was warm. The air smelled of salt and leather, of rum and aged wood. A scent familiar, one my body longed to recognize, though my mind, weary and bruised, refused to accept it. The silence was absolute. No chains, no echo of soldiers' boots, no voices. If this was death, I wanted to remain. My consciousness swayed between reality and dream. Sometimes I felt something, a touch. It moved over my skin, firm, warm, careful, unlike any I had endured in those cursed weeks. Heat. Tanned hands, strong fingers, they cleansed me. A damp cloth slid across my body, erasing dried blood, dirt, the residue of time. With each motion, it felt as though something inside me was being cleansed too. Those hands washed my face with infinite patience, as if waiting for my soul to return to my body. Someone touched my hair, not pulling, not tearing, only untangling knots, slowly. The sound of water flowing mingled with a voice, low, rough, Salvatore. Consciousness tugged me toward him, but exhaustion was stronger. So I let the dark carry me away again. I awoke in a room bathed in golden light, the scent of the sea drifting in like a reminder that I still belonged to this world. The bed was vast, covered in soft linen sheets, a heavy blanket cocooning me in warmth. I blinked slowly, uncertain whether this was dream or reality. Had I truly returned to my island? My island. Not the castle, not the gilded prison. My island. My gaze wandered the room, and then found him, Salvatore. He sat in a chair beside the bed, a book resting in his calloused hands. The late sunlight cast shadows across his face, making him appear even more formidable. For a moment, I only watched him. He looked weary in a way I had never seen before. His hair tousled, his shoulders tense, his jaw clenched tight, but it was his expression that stole my breath. Salvatore Navarro, the terror of the seas, the man whose blade had drowned oceans in blood, had the eyes of someone who had prayed. He didn't believe in God, but had he prayed for me? He sensed I was awake before I spoke. The book snapped shut. In an instant, he was at my side. You're safe now, princess. His voice was hoarse, exhausted, as though he hadn't slept in weeks. The words were a whisper in the silence of the room. I said nothing. I only looked at him, at this man. His hand brushed my forehead, his fingers warm against my chilled skin. My instinct was to recoil, but I didn't. Not from him, not anymore. The days passed like fragments of a dream. I didn't speak much, but he spoke for us both. When not at my side, Tending to every wound, Salvatore read to me tales of distant lands, of pirates and sea monsters, of kings and empires long turned to dust. Sometimes, when the book left his hands, his voice became something else. He sang songs of sailors, ballads of the sea, hymns of men who lived and died with the waves. I clung to those stories. They kept me from the dark. By the third week, I ate on my own. By the fourth, my fingers brushed his arm through the sheets. By the fifth, I slept against his chest. He held me, shielded me from cold, from the world, from anything that might harm me, but never from myself. I was a shattered woman, and Salvatore was the man who picked up every broken piece and forged something new, like a blacksmith molding steel. With fire and patience, he warmed my frozen heart, with strength and precision. He rebuilt me until I could stand again, and with a silent love, he made me stronger than I had ever been. He was waiting for me to return to him, because Salvatore never demanded. He only waited. That night, the storm raged outside. Wind whistled through the windows. Candles trembled, casting restless shadows on the walls. I don't know who moved first. Perhaps it was him. Perhaps it was me. Perhaps it was destiny, dragging us where we were always meant to be. But one moment, Salvatore sat at the edge of the bed, and the next, I was in his lap. My heart thundered against my ribs. My body shook, not from cold, but from desire, from fear, from something I could not name. Salvatore's hands gripped my waist as though afraid I might break. His dark eyes searched mine, begging for permission, for certainty, for the slightest hesitation. But I didn't hesitate. I wanted him. I needed him. His warmth, his weight, his presence, banishing everything that haunted me. So I kissed him first. My mouth met his, and Salvatore groaned low, a deep, raw sound that vibrated through me. His arms closed around me, strong, steady, holding me as though I was too precious to release. He laid me back on the bed with a care that clashed with the brutality that lived inside him, but that brutality was still there. I felt it in his heavy breath, in the tremor of his hands as he restrained himself. He wanted to consume me, but he was afraid of moving too fast, of breaking me before I was ready. His lips left mine, tracing fire down my neck. I gasped, my skin alight beneath him. He kissed slowly, descending over me, pausing against my chest, his breath scorching my skin. And then, fear struck. A memory. Wrong hands. Wrong touch. My breath faltered. My body froze. Salvatore felt it instantly. The fire in him died. He stopped. Completely. My eyes opened, locking on his. What I saw there was the agony of a man who would rather carve out his soul than see me afraid of him. Daphne, his voice was a broken whisper. My throat tightened, but I didn't want to stop, because I knew this man, the cruel pirate who burned cities and toppled thrones, would destroy the world itself before he harmed me. I touched his face. I'm here. My voice was soft, but steady. Salvatore drew in a sharp breath, his eyes dark with something that set me aflame. And then, he touched me again, slower this time, gentler. His hand slid over my waist, tracing up my body as though memorizing me anew. His warmth was intoxicating, his kisses deliberate, tender, yet heavy with undeniable hunger. Salvatore wanted me, not by force, but because I was giving myself to him. Our bodies fit together as though made for each other. Every muscle in him strained with restraint, his need barely contained. But I felt safe in his fire. When at last he claimed me, it was not pain, it was release, it was healing. It was the storm inside me breaking apart, replaced by something greater, because there was no fear between us. Only love, only warmth, only the desperate need to belong entirely to one another. The sheets tangled around us, the room smelled of salt and skin and the storm raging outside. My body trembled, exhausted, weak, but it was a weakness I welcomed. Salvatore's arms wrapped around me, his chest rising beneath my cheek, his breath still rough from all we had shared. And in the heart of the tempest, for the first time in years, I slept in peace.
I bathed her with more care than I'd ever known, touching her as though she were glass. I dressed her without looking, because I refused to let her think I was anything like him, and I prayed. Damnation, I prayed. I, a pirate who never believed in anything beyond steel and sea, begged any god who would listen, because I didn't just want Daphne alive, I wanted her, and I knew it would take time, so I waited. I watched from afar. When her eyes opened, slow, unfocused, as if the world around her made no sense, when she looked at my face and said nothing, when I fed her and she accepted but never truly saw me, Daphne had always been fire, always been storm, but now she was a calm sea. And what did I know about calm seas? That they hid the deadliest storm. So I spoke for us both. I read to her. I told stories of sailors and pirates, of monsters that haunted the... She didn't answer, but she listened. Even when her eyes stayed downcast, even when she seemed lost between worlds, she listened. Sometimes her breath changed, sometimes her gaze flickered toward me, for only a second, and when I thought perhaps she was lost to me forever. In the third week, she touched my arm, a small touch, hesitant, but it was the most important moment of my life. I did not sleep. I stayed beside her, sometimes watching her breathe, as though I needed proof she was still here. Other times, the only thing keeping me sane was the rhythm of the waves crashing against our island's cliffs. Until the 5th week, she slept on my chest. The first time her fingers slid across my arm, I nearly missed it. But when her body nestled into mine, seeking shelter like a child, I froze. My heart thundered, desperate to crush her against me, but I held still. I didn't want to break the fragile trust of that moment. Then her breath shifted, her face pressed into my chest. Her hands clutched my shirt, as though I was the only anchor keeping her here. And I knew, she was still here. My Daphne, the woman I stole, the woman who stole my soul. She was still here, hidden, shattered, but here, and I would bring her back, even if I had to destroy the world. Then came that night, the night she kissed me first, the night she chose me. The storm raged outside. The island trembled under the fury of the sea. Her fingers touched my face. Her eyes saw me, truly saw me. And when her lips found mine, it was as though a sunken ship had risen to the surface, because she was returning, piece by piece, touch by touch. The room was dark, lit only by the moon. Silver light danced across her skin, turning her into something otherworldly. She was mine, but in that moment, I didn't possess her. I worshipped her. My mouth traced slowly along her collarbone, my lips pressing reverence into her skin. Her scent was addictive, her every shiver feeding my hunger. But then, I lost her. It was subtle, a faltering breath, muscles stiff beneath my touch. Fear. The fire in me extinguished instantly. My body, aflame moments before, turned to stone. My lungs forgot air. My blood pounded with rage. He had touched her, not only her body. He had touched something within her that should never have been touched. My chest ached with a fury that almost broke me. Her eyes opened wide, and I saw it, a fragment of a nightmare I could never erase. My throat burned with something foreign, weakness, despair, anguish. I had never wanted to kill a dead man so much. Daphne. Her name left me as confession, as a plea for something I could not name. Her gaze drifted past me, as if she was elsewhere. But then, she found me, truly. And when her hand touched my face, her thumb brushing the rough edge of my beard, I felt the anchor break. "I'm here," she whispered. Her voice was soft, like a lighthouse guiding a ship lost in the dark. A knot tightened in my chest. She was here, enchanting me all over again, here with me, carrying my soul away with her. And I would do anything to ensure she never felt lost again. I exhaled, letting my hands slide across her skin once more, slower this time, not to claim, not to take, but to rebuild her, piece by piece, until she returned to being my storm, my princess, lying beneath me, her legs curled around my waist, her eyes filled with something I had never seen before, acceptance, trust. She had never looked at me like that, not as a captive, but as my woman. "I will make you feel whole again, Daphne," I murmured, my voice rough as gravel. "I will heal every wound, my love." Her breath caught when my mouth worshipped her skin, when my hands explored her with patience and reverence. She trembled under me, not with fear, but with want. I whispered her name again, reverent, as her lips parted in surrender. And when she pulled me closer, when her voice broke asking for more, I gave it to her, not with brutality, not with haste, but with a devotion that burned deeper than any flame I had ever known. Our movements were not conquest, they were resurrection. Her body answered mine, desperate, alive, as though she too understood this was no longer about survival, it was about reclaiming herself. And when her voice called my name, when her body arched and broke against me, I knew she was coming back. Not all at once, but enough to remind me that Daphne Callistratos was not lost. She was here, and she was mine. Afterward, silence filled the room, broken only by our ragged breaths. I stayed inside her, unmoving, holding her as though the storm outside would tear her away if I let go. I brushed damp strands from her face, searching her eyes. "Are you all right?" My voice was hoarse, uncertain. A small smile curved her lips, fragile, but true. "I'm home." Something inside me broke. I crushed her against me, holding her as though forever might not be long enough. And for the first time since I brought her back to the island, I slept. The sea roared in the distance, crashing against the rocks of the island, while the fire crackled before us, casting dancing shadows over the sand. We were far from the noise of drunken pirates, far from music and celebration. In that secluded part of the island, a small hut served as our refuge, a moment only for us. The orange glow of the flames painted Daphne's skin, highlighting every curve, every line, every shadow, as if the fire itself wished to carve her into my memory. She sat on my lap, barefoot, wearing only a thin shirt, my shirt, and nothing else. Her hair fell loose across her shoulders, wild like the waves surrounding our home. She didn't know what I was about to do, not yet. My fingers slid along her waist, climbing her ribs until resting just beneath her left breast, where her heart beat strong and steady. I could feel it pulse against my palm, alive. "Close your eyes," I whispered, my voice low, carrying something I could not name. She obeyed. Daphne trusted me now. I could have done this in the heat of battle with blood and steel, marking her in possession, but that would have been nothing more than claiming, nothing more than a man stamping his right over a woman. No, this was different. Now, I was the one who belonged to her, and I needed it engraved, in her skin, her body, her soul. I leaned in, inhaling the scent of salt, rum, and her. My lips brushed her temple as I murmured, "I want you to mark me." Her eyes opened slowly, golden fire under the light of the flames. "What?" I pulled back just enough to reveal the small vial of black ink I had prepared with one of my men, a special mixture, made to endure time and sea. Beside it, a heated blade, a dagger, sharp and ready to etch eternity into her skin. Her lips parted as she looked at the objects. She didn't ask why, because she already knew, because she already understood. "Here," I said, touching her collarbone and tracing downward to the curve of her ribs, just beneath her breast, a place no one else would see, where the skin was most tender. She shivered beneath my touch, not with fear, but with something that set my blood aflame. "Will it hurt?" Her voice was husky, her eyes burning with something dark and defiant. "Yes." Her lips curved in a daring smile. "Then do it." Damnation. She would always kill me this way, igniting fire and daring me to burn with. I gripped the dagger, my other hand holding her waist firm. "Stay still, princess." The first line was shallow, a fine mark across pale skin. She bit her lip, but didn't flinch, didn't blink. She only looked at me as though every touch was a spell. A drop of blood welled. I dipped my fingers in and traced over the mark. Slowly, the design took shape. A trident and an anchor intertwined, symbols of sea and storm. A sign that she was my pirate. I had never been a merciful, but that night, my brutality was gentled, because I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted to mark her as mine. She let out a faint sound as I finished the last stroke, her breath unsteady, her eyes clouded with both desire and the weight of what we had sealed. "Now it's my turn," she whispered, her voice rough like mine. She took the dagger from my hand and pushed me back, straddling, pinning me beneath her, her thighs pressed against me like chains. Nation. She would kill me one, and I would die smiling. Her fingers trailed across my chest, stopping above my heart. "Here." It was all she said before she cut. I felt the sting, the heat of steel, the burn of the mark. Blood slid down slowly, caught by her delicate fingers. She dipped them into the ink and pressed the symbol into my skin, her hand firm as though she carved her soul into mine. The anchor and the trident, now etched into me. When she finished, her eyes met mine, a silent promise between two wild creatures. No oath could equal what we had sealed, only the mark, only the pain, only us. The world fell away. There was no time, no rules, nothing but her fire consuming me. She leaned into me, her lips crushing mine, fierce and unyielding, her body molded against mine, her warmth driving me to madness. She moved with me, guiding us, taking control, claiming me as I claimed her. Our breaths tangled, our bodies pressed close, every heartbeat striking like thunder in my chest. Her voice, broken between whispers of my name, carried me to the edge of damnation. And when we surrendered to each other, it wasn't conquest, it was union. It was fire meeting fire, storm meeting storm, two souls marked forever.
The roar of the island blended with the crash of the sea. Drums echoed with the rhythm of the waves, while the feast consumed the night. Pirates sang, danced, shouted to the heavens as though it were their last day alive. And perhaps it was. The sea never promised tomorrow. Torches lit wild faces. The wind carried the smell of gunpowder and rum, and I stood at the center of it all, heat rising over my skin like an eternal flame. The first time I set foot on this island, I had been dragged as a prisoner. Now, I was here as queen, dressed in red, a color that once meant blood, but now meant fire. My hair loose in the wind, untamed, and when my eyes met Salvatore's, I felt the certainty that if this was hell, I would burn in it with pleasure. The pirates roared, calling for the toast. Salvatore drew the dagger from his belt and raised a goblet of rum. The steel caught the firelight, cold metal glinting against the blaze around us. He looked at me. His voice cut the night like thunder. From this night forward, there is no return. His eyes burned, storm and flame. She is mine, and I am hers. At sea, on land, and in hell itself, if need be. The pirate's roar shook the ground beneath us. I took the goblet from his hand and drank first. The liquid scorched down my throat, hot, fierce, merciless, just like him. A few drops slid down my neck, and I saw Salvatore's gaze follow their path across my skin. He seized the goblet back and drank next. The crowd cheered for us. And then, he moved. One sharp signal. The gunshot followed. The explosion of powder lit the sky, fire blooming behind us, the night ablaze. Salvatore had always been a man of promises, and that night, he sealed another. The sounds of the feast became distant, muted, as he pulled me into his arms. Laughter broke from my lips before his mouth claimed mine. The taste of rum, smoke, and desire burned between us. His lips were fierce, demanding, his touch, possession. But I never surrendered. I was never just his. He had always been mine as well. When we parted, my heart thundered inside my chest. So now, am I your wife? My voice came low, husky, carrying something I could not yet name. He looked at me as though every piece of me belonged to him. Since the first moment I saw you, heat spread through my spine. And what does that mean? His fingers slid to my waist, pulling me against him, pressing me into the weight of the vow we had just made. It means that now everything I am, everything I have, everything I will do, is for you. My breath caught. I looked into his eyes and saw the truth behind his words, saw that he would do whatever it took, kill, steal, burn the world if he must. And heaven help me, because I would do the same for him. Desire struck me like a blade. I needed him, there, now. He knew. Before another word could be spoken, he swept me into his arms. We vanished into the forest's dark embrace, leaving behind the shouts, the fire, and the sea. Fate was already sealed. The ink still burned on our skin. The gunpowder still smoked in the air. And now, we were husband and wife.
The sea was calm, too calm. The wind carried the scent of storm, a warning that something was about to happen. It was always this way before a rain. The silence before thunder, the stillness before death. I stood at the helm of La Tempestad, feeling the weight of the ocean beneath us, when a soft laugh echoed behind me. Daphne, she was there. My curse, my blessing, my wife. Not as a prisoner, not as a trophy, but as my queen. She wore a pirate's garb, leather trousers that clung to her figure, a white shirt loose at the chest. Her hair whipped in the wind, her eyes fixed on the enemy ship before us. "Are you certain of this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She turned to me, a provocative smile tugging at. "I've already been your prisoner, Salvatore. I've already been a hostage, a bargaining chip." She drew her dagger, spinning it with a grace that reminded me she was as lethal as any man in my crew. "Now, I am a pirate, and a pirate fights beside her captain." My eyes traced her, her fire, her madness. Gods, how I loved her. "Prepare for the attack!" I roared. The pirates thundered back, their cries shaking the deck. The raid had begun. La Tempestad struck the Portuguese hull like lightning splitting the sky. Hooks and ropes bit into the wood, my men swarming across like demons hungry for blood. Steel clashed, screams ripped through the air, and the stench of powder burned in my lungs. I surged forward, blade in hand, carving a path through soldiers. My blood pounded, sharp and merciless. Then I heard it, steel drawn behind me. I spun, ready to kill, but the strike never came. The Portuguese soldier gurgled, his eyes wide, his body trembling. Then he fell. Behind him stood Daphne, her dagger buried in his throat. For a moment, the world froze. She looked at the blade in her hand, at the blood staining her fingers. Then she lifted her eyes to mine. A brutal heat rose inside me. Not pride, not possession, desire, pure and primal. The battle raged around us, but for me, there was only her. Daphne let the body fall, pulling her dagger free, wiping it clean on her shirt. "You all right?" she asked, her voice husky. I laughed, a dark animal sound. "I've never been better." The battle ended. The enemy's corpses fed the sea, and La Tempestad cut the waves toward our island, heavy with gold. Daphne and I stood alone on deck, the rain soaking us, the blood of enemies washing from our skin. The silence between us was electric. She had killed for, and now I wanted nothing but her. My hands found her waist before I realized it. "Did you enjoy it?" My voice came rough. Her eyes glimmered in the stormlight. "Enjoy what?" "Killing for me." Her lips curved, her fingers brushing the line of my jaw, her gaze burning. "I enjoyed what came after," she whispered. Then she pulled me into her mouth. I seized her, pressing her back against the mast. Daphne had never been delicate. She was war, destruction, passion carved into my skin. Our kiss was fire and storm, our teeth clashing, tongues fierce, breath stolen. Her nails raked down my chest, and a growl tore from me. I lifted her leg, pulling her against me, the rain pouring harder, the world a blur of thunder and sea. "You want me here?" My voice was iron, low and dangerous. She bit my lip, smiling with defiance. "Do it." I crushed her closer, my mouth devouring hers, my hands roaming as though the storm itself demanded we burn. The world was rain, wind, fire. Her voice, breaking against the roar of the sea, was all I heard. "I am yours, Salvatore." Yes, that was all I needed. I held her face, my lips claiming hers again, a vow in every breath. "And I am yours, princess." The storm howled around us. Waves struck the hull like cannon fire. Lightning carved the sky. But the only truth was her heat, her voice, her surrender. And in that moment she belonged to the sea as much as I did.
The sea had always been unpredictable. One moment, a calm mirror reflecting the sky. The next, a raging beast swallowing ships whole. And now, as La Tempestad cut through the waters, I felt the ocean within me, a revolution happening in my belly. A storm I did not yet know how to name. I was sick again. The salt in the air, the sway of the ship, it all struck me differently now, more intensely. But I already knew the truth. What stirred inside me was not just the fury of the sea. It was a child, Salvatore's child. The thought struck like an unexpected tempest. My heart raced, my breath grew heavy, and my fingers gripped the ship's railing so tightly that my knuckles ached. "Daphne?" His voice pulled me back. I turned slowly. Salvatore stood there, watching me with eyes that saw too much, as though he already knew, and perhaps he did. He always saw through me. The way his gaze slid over me, reading every detail of my face, the tension in my shoulders, the hand resting unconsciously over my stomach. He knew. But he didn't ask. Not yet. He only studied me. I swallowed hard. I couldn't face it. Not now. So I did what I always did when the truth was too large to bear. I turned away. That night, we anchored near the island. The men drank and celebrated on the beach, but I wandered the sand alone, unable to join them. My mind was far away. The tide licked at my bare feet, the foam cool against my skin, a contrast to the heat spreading through my chest. Children. I had never thought of such things. My destiny had always been to escape, to survive, never to build. But now, I belonged to a pirate. I belonged to the ocean, and something inside me was growing, sealing that truth forever. Salvatore approached silently, like a predator. "You're different," he said, his voice low, laced with something I couldn't name. I crossed my arms, avoiding his gaze. "And what does that mean?" He stopped behind me, so close I could feel his heat against my back. "It means you're hiding something." I closed my eyes. I could lie, say it was only exhaustion, but Salvatore knew. He always knew. And maybe deep down, I wanted him to. "Salvatore." My voice came weaker than I wished. He turned me gently, his eyes burning into mine. For a long moment, we simply stood there. The silence weighed as heavily as the ocean around us. Then his hand rose, fingers brushing lightly across my stomach, so soft, so unlike the pirate who burned cities and toppled kings. My chest tightened. I didn't know what to say, because I didn't know how to feel. Did I want this child? Did I want to bring life into a world where blood and steel ruled? Fear coiled inside me, thick as fog. He saw it, and then he said something that shattered everything around me. "If you don't want this life," his voice was hoarse, rough, raw, with something painful. "I'll leave it all behind." My heart stopped. My eyes widened. "What?" Salvatore cupped my face, his rough fingers tracing my jaw. "If you need something else, if you want more, I'll turn the prow of this ship and sail anywhere. Anywhere. For just us three." My hands trembled. "Salvatore, I am a pirate," he said, fierce and absolute. "But for you, for this child, I would throw away everything I've ever fought for." My pirate king was ready to abandon his throne, for me, for our child. Tears burned my eyes. I couldn't find words, so I did the only thing that made sense. I kissed him. My mouth found his with hunger. He didn't hesitate. His hands seized me, pulling me into his body, his tongue devouring mine. Desire erupted between us, wild, chaotic, like a storm breaking over the sea. I needed him, here, now. He carried me into the surf, the waves breaking against our legs, the cold water clashing with the fire of our skin. He lifted me, my legs locking around his waist. "You'll give me an heir, Daphne." His voice rumbled against my throat. I smiled, my hand sliding down his broad shoulders, feeling every line of muscle beneath my fingers. Are you ready for that, pirate? His eyes burned, fierce, certain. His hand moved over the curve of my stomach. I was born ready, princess. My laughter melted into a gasp when his mouth found my neck, his teeth grazing my skin. You're insatiable, I whispered, my voice trembling as he pressed closer. For you, always. My fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him into me, into the only place he belonged. The ocean roared around us as he claimed me, every movement fierce, unrelenting, like the crash of waves against the rocks. The sea bore witness as we sealed our promise, not with crowns, nor thrones, but with fire, storm, and love raw as the tide itself. The moon blessed us, the foam curled around our bodies, and in that moment, I knew. I did not have to choose. The sea had already chosen for us. Our child belonged to the ocean too.
The cabin still smelled of new wood, a raw scent that mingled with the salt of the ocean and Daphne's own natural perfume. I had ordered the place expanded, new rooms, a larger bed, everything she deserved for comfort. The main hall was always crowded with pirates, women, and chaos. But here she was, mine, and only mine. Leaning against the doorway, I watched Daphne lying on our bed, my curse, my salvation. The fire from the hearth threw shadows across her skin, accentuating every curve, every inch of a body that seemed created for me. But now, there was something different. She was fuller, softer, her breasts heavier, her belly faintly rounded, already carrying the mark of what I had planted in. I hardened just from looking. Hell itself would burn me for this, but I had never desired her more than now. Daphne sensed my presence and turned slowly, her thin dress slipping over her body like caress. She caught my stare and smiled. You're looking at me as though you want to devour me. My jaw clenched, because that is exactly what I want to do. Her brows arched, teasing, as she sat up, the slit of her dress parting to reveal the soft expanse of her thighs. My body roared with possession. In seconds, I crossed the room and dragged her into my lap, relishing the delicious weight of her against me. How can you grow even more irresistible? I growled against her skin, my mouth sliding down her neck, lingering over her breasts, that now seemed shaped by the gods themselves to be worth. She sighed, arching into, I haven't changed much. A dark laugh escaped me, my teeth grazing her throat. You have no idea. My hands traced her thighs, firm, spreading them, claiming the space that was always mine. Do you feel this, princess? I whispered against her mouth. Your body knows it belongs to me. Her moan vibrated against my lips, her fingers clutching my shoulders as I ground her closer to me. Salvatore, you're burning, I rasped, devouring her mouth with mine, demanding her surrender. And she yielded. She always yielded. Yet at the same time, she conquered me without even trying. Every sigh, every tremor, every desperate sound she gave me was a chain I never wished to break. I lifted her, guiding her onto the bed, my hands and lips branding every inch of her as mine. She looked back at me over her shoulder, her face flushed, her eyes blazing with both surrender and command. Then take me, Captain. The last of my restraint shattered. I claimed her with the force of a man who knew no boundary. Every movement was a vow. Every sound from her lips was a crown upon my head. The fire roared, the sea thundered outside, but all I knew was her, the rhythm of her breath, the heat of her skin, the storm we created together. Her voice, crying my name, was both my ruin and my redemption. When at last she collapsed against the sheets, trembling with the intensity of what we had shared, I followed her into that same abyss, consumed entirely. Holding her close, my mouth against her hair, I whispered the truth she had already branded into me. Daphne was mine, my queen, and now, the mother of my heir.
The sky roared. Thunder crashed over the island, shaking stone and sea alike. The storm whipped the shutters, the wind howled, and salt water from the rain crept through the cracks in the door. And inside that suffocating room, my body was another storm. I had never known true pain until this moment. The contraction tore through me from within, a tidal wave of agony ripping a primal scream from my throat. My body was drenched, trembling, slick with sweat and the weight of effort. The midwives rushed, preparing cloths, herbs, boiling water. The flames of the candles trembled under the assault of the storm. The scent of blood, sweat, and salt filled the air, and I clung to one single thing keeping me conscious. Salvatore. He was meant to wait outside. The midwives had argued, shouted, tried to drive him out, but no one commanded Salvatore Navarro. The thunder nearly drowned out the sound of the door crashing open. I will not leave. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Sweat streamed down my face as my eyes found his. He was there, hoarse, tense, wild. His chest rose and fell with restrained desperation, his fists clenched at his sides, as though fighting armies would be easier than watching me suffer. There was fear in his eyes, but he did not retreat. He never did. "You cannot be here," one of the midwives protested, aprons soaked with blood. "No one will stop me from seeing my son born." No one dared argue again. He came to me, seized my hand with a grip as though he could bear part of the pain himself, and perhaps for a moment he did. I clutched him back, my nails digging into his flesh as another contraction carved me apart from the inside. "Ah!" The scream ripped from my throat, my face twisted with torment. Salvatore murmured something in Spanish against my forehead, words I could not understand but felt deep in my soul. He was there. He would not let go. The pain was unbearable. My body felt split in two. "I can't!" I gasped, despair crushing my will. Salvatore gripped my face in both hands, his eyes burning into mine. "You can. You will." Sweat stung my eyes. My muscles locked in terror and effort. "Now!" the midwife cried. One final contraction. I pushed with everything left inside me. My scream was raw, tearing me apart. My body broke open, bones and blood and fire. And then, the cry filled the air, loud, fierce, unstoppable. The sound of our destiny, echoing like the ocean itself. My body collapsed against the bed, spent, shaking, but I could not rest. Because the sight before me stole the breath from my lungs. Salvatore held our child. He looked frozen, his eyes wide, his mouth parted. The most merciless pirate of the seven seas, undone. I had never seen that expression on him. Never. "It's a boy, Captain," the midwife announced, but Salvatore didn't hear. He didn't move, didn't blink. His rough, scarred fingers trembled as they brushed the newborn's skin. So small, so fragile. And for the first time in his life, Salvatore Navarro feared holding something, but he held him, and he would never let go. He came to me, kneeled beside the bed, and placed our son in my arms. I felt the warmth of that tiny body against my chest. Soft lips, eyes shut tight, breathing quick and shallow. Perfect. Ours. My chin quivered. Tears burned my eyes. "You did this, princess," Salvatore whispered, his voice breaking. My fingers traced the baby's cheek. "We did." He wrapped us both in his arms, holding me and our child as if he could hold destiny itself. The weight of his love nearly crushed me. He kissed my forehead, then my cheek, then my lips. Long, warm, gentle. "You are the strongest woman I have ever known." My throat ached, my body trembling. Salvatore Navarro did not thank. He was not a man of gratitude. But in that moment, "Thank you, princess." I smiled weakly. "Thank you, Captain." Our son shifted against my chest, his tiny hand curling toward warmth. The first heir of Salvatore Navarro. And outside, the ocean roared as if it blessed the moment, giving us its final gift. The sea had once taken me, but now it had given me a family, and I swore I would never let fate take this from me.
The sun burned against my skin like live embers, reflecting over the dark waters of the harbor. The wind carried the scent of salt and rum, and the voices of pirates rose like a final tribute before farewell. Looking back at the island I had once called home, I felt something I had never felt before. Peace. Not the peace of a dead man, like so many I had left behind, but the peace of a man who had finally chosen to live. Reed stood beside me, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the horizon as though he could already see the future. "So this is it?" His voice carried disbelief. "Yes." He gave a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Who would have thought? The damned Salvatore Navarro trading war for the Sultan's gold." "I haven't traded war," I replied. "I've chosen to fight a different one where my family will come first." Reed studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "You've always been good at that, choosing what serves you best." I smirked. He wasn't wrong. In the distance, Daphne stood with our son in her arms, her belly already beginning to swell with new life. I had never imagined such a destiny for myself, never thought I would crave more than sea and blood. But now, everything had changed. "The island is yours, Reed," I said. "Guard it as though it were your soul." His brow arched. "And if I sink this place into the sea?" I stepped forward, placing my hand on his shoulder. "Then burn it all and drink the rum." A grin stretched across my face. "But if you do, warn me first, so I can laugh at the ruin from afar." Reed laughed, and for a moment, we were not captain and first mate. We were brothers of war, saying goodbye one last time. The ships departed at dawn, slicing through the waves with the precision of sharpened blades. Daphne stood beside me on deck, her hair wild in the wind, her red dress clinging to her curves. She held our son in her arms, her other hand resting protectively on her stomach. "Are you certain about this?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "I've never been more certain." She smiled, soft, full of emotion. I knew that a part of her burned with the same ache of farewell, but something greater awaited us, and I was ready to take what was ours. Constantinople welcomed us like monarchs. The palace gates opened wide, revealing marble and gold, opulence dripping from every column and arch. Incense thickened the air, heavy with power, and at the heart of it all, he waited. Sultan Ibrahim rose from his throne, robed in silk and gold, rings flashing under the lantern. His dark eyes gleamed with something between triumph and satisfaction. "At last, the prodigal son returns," his voice thundered through the hall, heavy with pride and expectation. At my side, Daphne stiffened, feeling the weight of this new reality. Our son clung to my leg, his wary eyes fixed on the Sultan. But me, I only smiled. What would Sultan Ibrahim be without a sailor like me to lead his fleet? My voice rang steady, edged with provocation. The Sultan laughed, deep and booming. He knew I would never bow, and that was exactly why he wanted me. From now on, I would lead the Ottoman navy. My years as a pirate were over. The sea I once plundered was now mine to command. After Mehmed's death, the man who had plucked me from ruin, who taught me the language of the sea, who made me more than a forgotten bastard, I understood something. The empire that raised me needed me now. These men were not my blood, but they had made me a man. They had loved me as a son. They had given me a name worth remembering, and I would honor that. I would protect Constantinople. I would protect the Ottomans. The pirate king was gone. Now began the years of glory. Here, my children would have a future, education, status, a chance to choose their own paths. Something I had never been given. I was no longer merely a king of the seas. I was a warlord, and Daphne, she was now queen of an empire. That night, lying in satin sheets within our new home, she looked at me with eyes shining with something I had never seen before. "Are you truly happy?" she whispered. I kissed her belly, my lips tracing every curve, worshipping the woman who had given me everything I had never known. I have never been happier, my love." Her fingers slid into my hair, pulling me into a kiss, slow, heated. I had conquered empire, but my greatest conquest lay in my arms. Daphne, my wife, the mother of my children, and now, the lady of a new era.
The palace was finally silent. By finally, I mean I had just put 4 children to bed, and 3 of them did not go quietly. The twins, barely a year old, had spent the last half-hour screaming like little demons from hell. The eldest refused to let go of his book, and the middle one was lost in his own world, trying to dissect a scorpion he had found in the garden. In other words, I was exhausted. And that was the exact moment Salvatore entered the room, closing the door with a thud and looking at me like a hunter about to strike. "No." I lifted my hand, my voice weary. He smiled. That smile. The one that said yes, yes, yes to everything I said no to. "Woman, you're playing with fire." His voice came low and rough, and he was already unbuckling his belt. "Salvatore, the twins just fell asleep. If they wake up, I'll kill you. Better take advantage of me before then." He lunged before I could escape. I cried out, but it was laughter when he swept me into his arms and tossed me onto the bed with ease, his mouth claiming mine in a hot, devouring kiss that was far too familiar. His hand slid quickly over me, tugging my dress upward. "You still have milk in your breasts," he muttered, kissing me there with shameless hunger. I gasped. "And does that bother you?" He looked at me, eyes gleaming with pure wickedness. "It drives me insane." Heat flared through my whole body. It was always this way. 4 children later, and Salvatore Navarro could still make me come undone with nothing more than a look. His kisses trailed lower, hotter, wetter, until, "Baba, there's someone in the room." We froze. I blinked. Salvatore buried his face between my thighs, groaning in frustration against my bare skin. "This cannot be happening. Mama, Papa." Our middle son's voice echoed through the door. "I had a nightmare." Salvatore looked at me, his expression so filled with disgusted resignation that I almost laughed. Almost, because my body still burned, and now I wanted to kill someone too. I pushed him back, pulling my dress down. "Seems our session is over," he growled. "This is cruelty. Either you open the door for your son, or you traumatize him forever," I said, laughing. He dragged a hand down his face, muttering curses under his breath. "I am the general of the Ottoman Navy. I have burned cities to ash, and I cannot bed my own wife in my own chamber because a miniature version of me has bad dreams?" "Exactly," he sighed, glaring at the ceiling as though searching for answers from some unseen god. I still didn't know if Salvatore truly didn't believe in divinities, or if he simply chose to ignore them, because every time life cornered him, he found a way to pray. Then he opened the door. Our little heir stood there, clutching a blanket, his eyes wet. "There was a monster in my dream," he whispered. Salvatore knelt, lifting him easily into his arms. "What monster, boy?" "A big one, with sharp teeth." "And what did you do?" Our son sniffled, then puffed out his chest. "I cut off his head with a dagger." Salvatore grinned, proud. "Now that's my son." And then he placed the boy in our bed. I stared. "What are you doing?" "He sleeps here tonight." "Salvatore!" But it was too late. The boy curled against my chest, his eyes closing, asleep as though the heavens themselves had sung him a lullaby. Salvatore dropped into the bed, covering his eyes with one arm and growling, "I'm going to die like this, blocked from touching my own wife by my own children." I laughed, so hard my ribs ached. He cracked one eye open to glare at me. "You think this is funny, don't you?" "A little." He sighed heavily. "If I didn't love you so much, Daphne, you'd be a widow by now." I kissed his cheek softly. "Well, who knows? If you're patient, I might wake in the middle of the night wanting to play." His eyes lit with sudden hope. "Truly?" "Good night, my love." I rolled to the side and fell asleep with a victorious smile on my lips. He cursed in Spanish, and I slept soundly.
The sun scorched the golden marble of the palace courtyard. The hot wind of Constantinople carried the scent of spice and sea, while the clash of blades rang through the halls. My children were training, 4 of them, 4 little demons I dared to call heirs. They were fire and steel, molded with their mother's ferocity and their father's ruthless instincts. My eldest, Alec, swung his sword as though he had been born with it. He was me, my cruel gaze, my hunger for battle, and of course my damned grin that knew he was better than everyone else. Beside him, Javier moved with sharp calculation. He was clever, cold. He carried his mother's mind for strategy. And then, the twins. My eternal curse. Sent, I was certain, by God, or perhaps by some vengeful spirit, as divine punishment to test my sanity. They were the terror of Constantinople, golden-skinned demons with wicked grins. Even the Sultan himself had fallen victim to their tricks. Imagine it. 2 identical 10-year-olds switching places just to confuse and harass the most powerful. If an emperor wasn't safe from, what chance did the rest of us have? Gale spun a dagger in one hand while holding a book in the other. Yes, a damned book. He read while fighting, and still managed to win in the last second. Diego needed no strategy. It was pure brutality. A storm of destruction. Stronger than his brothers, more stubborn than anyone alive. I watched them with arms crossed, chest filled with pride. Because I had won. I had it all. An empire, a queen, 4 heirs who could conquer whatever land they chose, and above all, peace. Yes, peace. At last, I could finally enjoy my wife without interruption. No crying no miniature versions of me blocking the path to my bed. They were almost grown, with their own battles to fight. The world was mine again, and Daphne too. My gaze drifted to the palace balcony where she stood, watching me with the same smile she had worn since the day she ruined. My blood surged. Even after all these years, she was still the most beautiful and dangerous thing I'd ever seen. Her curves still hypnotized me. Her eyes still burned me, and I still wanted to throw her against the nearest wall and make her scream my name. For once, I finally, no children to interrupt. I smiled at her. She smiled back. Yes, I knew what that looked. It was a promise, one I intended to collect that. But then, Daphne her mouth and shattered my cursed Salvatore. I'm pregnant. The sound of steel ceased. The children froze mid-battle. The servants held their breath. The entire palace went silent. And I froze. My hands dropped to my sides. I blinked, trying to process, then stepped back, and again, and again. "Salvatore?" Daphne arched a brow. I raised a finger at her. "No." She laughed. "Are you not happy?" "Daphne." My voice came out a low growl. "Do you have any idea what this means?" Her eyes gleamed, cruelly amused. "It means we're having another baby." My eye twitched. "No. It means I start this cursed cycle of sleepless nights. Screaming infants. Tiny monsters ruining my life in my own house." The boys burst out laughing. Alec clapped Javier's shoulder, grinning. "Looks like the old man's finished." Javier nodded, struggling to hold back his laughter. "You survived 4, father. The 5th will be easy." The twins howled, falling over themselves in laughter. And Daphne smiled. That woman was destroying my sanity, and smiling while I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and then I surrendered. "Come here, woman." I lifted her into my arms, ignoring the cheers and jeers of our sons, who applauded and shouted obscenities as I carried her to the palace. She laughed, her small fists beating playfully against my back. "What are you doing, pirate?" "Celebrating this cursed news the only way I know how," she giggled, wriggling. "Maybe this time it will be a girl. Girls are easier," I groaned dramatically. "I've lost all hope of daughters. I only make sons. It's in my blood." "Never say never," she teased. "Perhaps the universe wants to end your sanity completely. Imagine our daughter falling in love with a pirate." I stopped in the corridor, narrowing my eyes. "You're trying to kill me before this child is even born, aren't you?" I tossed her onto the bed. She was still laughing when I pinned her there, my mouth claiming hers, my hands worshipping the body that had already given me everything. "You're provoking me, woman," I growled against her lips, "and I will have my revenge." Daphne bit her lip, feigning innocence. "Oh, Captain, and how will you take it?" My hand slid down her thighs, rough, demanding. "By reminding you every day of these 9 months that you belong to me. Entirely. No interruptions, no excuses." Her laughter melted into a moan as my lips traced her neck. Fire meeting fire once again. I worshipped her, slow and merciless. My promise whispered into her skin. Nothing, not fate, not gods, not even fatherhood, would stop me from taking what was mine. And Daphne Calistratos Navarro would always be mine, without hesitation, without fear, without limits. Thank you for sailing with me to the very end. Your presence here means more than you can imagine. Every gesture you make helps this voyage continue. Your interaction is the compass that keeps this channel alive. Each time you leave a like, write a comment, or share a story, YouTube understands that these words deserve to travel farther across the seas of the world, and that inspires me deeply to keep writing with soul and devotion. If you enjoy the tales I share here, let your mark be felt. Leave a like, whisper a small comment, even a simple "I'm here" warms my heart. And if you have not yet joined our crew, subscribe. It's free, and you can ring the bell to receive each new story as it arrives with the tide. And if it is not too much to ask, share it on your network, through a message, or with someone who might need a spark of beauty because your help makes all the difference. Together, we can scatter love stories into a world drowning in noise and perhaps, with one small gesture, we can make it a little brighter. Thank you for being here, and may you always, always feel welcome.